Good morning, MLIS students, or anyone else struggling this fall to learn how to draw relational schema diagrams, or how to articulate how your database follows the 3 normalization rules. I will use my example relational schema diagram for my database, tracking information on people taking trips from their homes to businesses to potentially make purchases. So we know that possible types of relationships between tables in a database include a one-to-one relationship, a one-to-many relationship, and a many-to-many relationship. However, with many-to-many relationships, we reduce repeated attributes in these tables by instead creating a linking table comprised of 2 foreign keys that has a one-to-many relationship with 2 tables. And so as for the 3 normalization rules, the first normal form concerns ensuring that there are no repeated groups in the table, and as well as no other tables having the same name as a given table. A hint that this rule is not followed is if you see an S at the end of one of your field names in one of your tables. A second normal form is automatically satisfied if you use an automatically generated number for all of the primary keys in your database. Auto numbers are generated to ensure that there is no confusion as to whether all attributes in a table are identified by all of the table's primary key. Third normal form ensures that all fields in a table specifically relate to the table's primary key and no other primary keys in any other tables. Other fields that may have gone in the table would be taken out from that table and instead organized in another table, if those fields also depend on primary keys in other tables due to sharing attributes. So before we look at the tables and relationships and normalization rules, let's list and describe the entities and their attributes in this database and the tables that instantiate the entities. So first of all, we have the entity business, and the tables that instantiate this entity are the locations table, the residence trips table, and the business's destinations table. And what this entity is the destination location of where the person goes on their journey, and its attributes include the industry ID, its website, location ID, Monday hours, Tuesday hours, Wednesday hours, Thursday hours, Friday hours, Saturday hours, Sunday hours. And then the next entity we have is resident, and the tables that instantiate it are the residence tables, a table, and the residence trips table. And the resident takes part in either a walking trip or a bus trip to a single business in any given instance. And the resident's attributes are first name, last name, monthly budget, and possesses a departure location. So they're home. And then another entity is home, and that is the point of departure, and its attributes include street address, postal code, name, for example, so-and-so's house, and phone number, phone type, for example, cell or landline. And then the tables that instantiate home include locations table and residence table. And then the next entity is trip, and the tables that instantiate this entity are the resident trips table and the trips purchases table. And what a trip is an event taken by a single resident to a business, and its attributes include departure time, arrival time, resident ID, business name or destination ID, travel method such as bus or walking, written directions ID, map directions picture, so that's bus or walking ID. And then the next entity is purchase, and the tables that instantiate it are the purchases table and the trips purchases table. And its description is a single purchase resulting from a trip, and its attributes include purchase name, purchase cost, purchase type such as product or service, and then another entity is trip purchase, and the table that instantiates it is trips purchases, and it's comprised of purchase ID and trip ID. And then the last entity is location, and the tables that instantiate it are the locations table, the businesses table, and the homes table. And what it is either a point of departure or destination. And its attributes are street address, postal code, name, for example, so-and-so's house, or metro grocery store, phone number, phone type, for example, cell or landline once again. And so now we will look at the tables that are related. So the first table is residents and resident trips table are related, and this is a one-to-many relationship, and this is because a single resident will go on many trips. The next relationship is with the trips purchases table is related both to purchases and residents trips table, and the type of relationship trips purchases has a one-to-many relationship with the two other tables, and this is because trips purchases is a linking table to break down the many-to-many relationship between purchases and residents trips, as one can make numerous purchases on many trips. The next relationship is the locations table and phone types table. And the type of relationship is a one-to-many. Phone types on the one side, locations on the many side. And this is because each phone type can be associated with more than one location. And in this scenario, each location only has one phone type. And so then the locations table is related both to the homes table and the business table. And type of relationship is the locations table has a one-to-one relationship both with the homes table and the businesses table, as only one location can describe only one business or home. And then the resident trips table and transportation methods table are related in a one-to-many relationship. And this is because a single trip correlates to a single transportation method, but a single transportation method can be associated with many trips. And so then the next tables that are related are businesses and industries tables. And they are related through a one-to-many relationship because one industry can describe more than one business, and we're only recording one industry type per business in this scenario. And then the resident trips table and maps table have a one-to-many relationship because one instant of a resident trip can have either a walking directions map or a bus directions map. And there's a relationship between resident trips table and written directions table, and it's a one-to-many relationship because each resident's trips method can be associated with either a walking written directions or a business written directions. So then the justifications now for why each table is normalized. The businesses destinations table It satisfies first normal form in that there are no repeating groups in the table. While each day's opening hours is plural, we're assuming that each day can only have one possible opening hour and one possible closing hour to be entered into the one cell together as a descriptive field. It satisfies second normal form because its primary key, defined in the locations table, is an auto number. Consequently, there could be no confusion whether or not all attributes in the table are identified by all of the primary key, and it satisfies third normal form in that all fields in the table specifically relate to the primary key in the table and no other primary key in any other tables. Other fields that could have gone in the table had to be taken out into another table, as those fields also depend on primary keys in other tables because they're shared attributes. And then for the residence table, there are no other tables in the database that share the same attributes, so none of the attributes in the table are repeated groups and therefore satisfies third normal form. And there are no other tables that describe people in this database, so there is less to watch out for in this area. And then resident ID is an auto number, so automatically satisfies second normal form, as all attributes are dependent on each resident ID's auto number. And there are no other tables called residents in the database, so it satisfies first normal form. And then the residence trips table. There is only one residence trips table in the database, and lookup tables have been created so that there are no repeating field names. Therefore, it satisfies first normal form, and the auto number trip ID primary key depends on everything listed in the table. Therefore, it satisfies second normal form. And many foreign keys comprise this table instead of numerous field names or attributes, as the attributes represented by the foreign keys are dependent on other keys. So the solution using only the foreign keys to represent attributes dependent on other primary keys, the table satisfies third normal form. So then the home's departure locations table satisfies second and third normal form in the same way that business's departure locations does. And there are no other tables with the same name, and no fields within the table repeat themselves. Therefore, it satisfies first normal form. And then the trips purchases table, there are no attributes within the table, so automatically satisfies second and third normal form. And the whole reason why the table was created was to eliminate repeating groups in the purchases and trips table, and there are no other tables with the same name, so this table satisfies first normal form. And then the locations table. The table was created for the purpose of eliminating repeated attributes in the homes and businesses table, tables, and none of the attributes within the table itself repeat themselves. So it satisfies first normal form, and the table satisfies second normal form because all attributes within the table depend on the entirety of the auto number primary key. And all attributes within the table depend only on the table's primary key and not on the primary keys of other tables related to that table. Therefore, satisfies third normal form. And then the purchases table satisfies first normal form thanks to the creation of the linking table called trips purchases that eliminates the possibility of repeating groups. satisfies second normal form because all attributes within the table depend on the entirety of the primary key's auto number, and satisfies third normal form because none of the attributes within the table are composed of primary keys found first in other tables, and this table is the first and only instance of those attributes. And so then the industries table satisfies first normal form because it is a lookup table specifically created to eliminate repeated attributes and tables in the database. None of the attributes within the table are similar or only distinguished by numbers. It satisfies second normal form because all attributes in the table depend entirely on the auto number of the primary key, which is industry ID, and satisfies third normal form because none of the attributes within the table depend on primary keys from either tables, and there is only one primary key for this table, so automatically do not have to worry about violation of third normal form. And then the maps table satisfies first normal form because there are no other tables in the database with the same name, nor are there any repeating attributes in the table or database. Instead, there is a foreign key to represent the table. And it satisfies second normal form because all attributes in the table depend on the entirety of the auto number primary key. And then it satisfies third normal form because there is only one primary key in the table and database that the attributes could depend on. And then the written directions table is the same as maps for all three rules. And then the transportation methods table, it satisfies first normal form because there is only one attribute in the table, so no repeats to worry about, and that attributes does not repeat itself anywhere else in the database. The primary key from the table is repeated in other tables, but as a foreign key, so that doesn't count as repeating. And then satisfies second normal form because the one attribute in the table depends entirely on the auto number primary key. And then satisfies third normal form because there is only one primary key in the table and database that the one attribute within the table depends on. And then phone types table satisfies first normal form because, like the transportation methods table, there are very few attributes in the table to worry about repeating themselves elsewhere in the database, and the single attribute does not, in fact, repeat itself in the database. Satisfies second normal form because the attribute depends entirely on the auto number primary key in the table and not just half of the number. And then satisfies third normal form because there is only one primary key in the table as opposed to a compound primary key, and the attribute depends on that primary key and not on any other primary keys within the database. And then the last table is the purchase type, and those normalization rules is the same as the phone types table for all three rules.